Now part of the Darkcast Network. Welcome to Indie Podcasts with a dark side. In today's episode, we're talking about a love triangle, a staged crime scene, and a bite mark that ends up being the key to the whole thing. This is the case of Devon Guzman, right now on Love and Murder. Welcome, lambs. Welcome to a new episode of Love and Murder, your weekly true crime podcast telling you cases of heartbreak that turn to homicide. I am your host, Kai, and in today's episode, we're talking about the murder of 19-year-old Devon Guzman, which happened back in 2000. It was a love triangle gone wrong, as they usually do, and a couple of twists until we actually find out what happened. Before we begin, I want to say that this episode is sponsored by my lambs and Patreon, patreon.com/love and murder. Without my exclusive lambs' continued support in Patreon, I don't think this show would be able to go on. So I do want to thank you first and foremost. Be sure to subscribe to Love and Murder right now while you're listening so you don't miss a case. If you didn't know, you can also subscribe on our Patreon so you don't have to hear intros such as this one or commercials that are coming up or the commercials that were in the very beginning too. You'll get Kai Rants, bonuses, and you'll be a sponsor of Love and Murder. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. In the meantime, though, grab your butts, grab your delicious glass of BJ's apple juice, murderandlove.com/BJ's. And of course, BJ's has so much more than apple juice, but you won't know that until you sign up for a BJ's membership. And by using my link, murderandlove.com/BJ's, you'll get that membership for only $20 for the first year. Murderandlove.com/BJ's. Plus, you'll be helping Love and Murder. And let's get into some Love and Murder. So on June 15, 2000, Devon Guzman's body was found lying in the backseat of her gray car, which was parked at the Delaware Canal State Park in Easton, Pennsylvania. Initially, it seemed like it was a suicide. Her throat had been viciously slashed, so if you looked, it was actually a 4-inch cut from ear to ear. She had a knife in her hand and even a syringe laying nearby. Classic suicide scenario, you would think, right? That is, until investigators took a closer look. First, I know you're wondering, who's Devon Guzman? Devon was a regular teenager. She was described as being happy, vibrant, full of life, and had a lot of ambition. Her parents, Melody and Rick Guzman, were loving and supportive of Devon when she came out as bisexual. They told her, "We love you either way." At the time of her death, Devon had been involved in a love triangle with two women, Keary Renner and Michelle Hetzel. Devon actually shared an apartment with Keary at the Mineral Springs Hotel. She shared an apartment at the hotel. Although they were living as a couple, their relationship was known to be volatile and even abusive, according to Devon's father. Keary and Devon would frequently fight, even sometimes physically, but Devon seemed to be more in love with the other woman, Michelle Hetzel. On the evening of June 14, 2000, Devon and Keary got into another one of their heated arguments. Witnesses from the bar below their apartment reported hearing the fight and even remembered that one of the patrons from the bar had gone upstairs to check on them. Wow, that's how bad the fight was? After the argument, Devon stormed out of the house and didn't come back that whole night. Keary and Michelle both got worried when Devon didn't come home. And early in the morning of June 15, and when I say early in the morning, I mean 12 a.m., 1 a.m., stuff like that, the two women went out to find her, and it wasn't long before they found her car at the National Canal Museum. When they found Devon inside, that's when they called police, and when police got there, they said Devon was dead. When investigators actually looked over the scene, they said, "Oh, this isn't a suicide. It was made to appear as a suicide, but it wasn't a suicide." Because guess what? Yeah, Devon had a knife in her hand and she had that gash on her throat, but the knife was clean. There was literally no blood on it at all. So whoever set up this crime scene basically was a moron. How are you going to try and make it look like a suicide with a clean knife in this girl's hand? Moron. They also found a syringe tucked into the waistband of her pants, but toxicology reports later confirmed that were no drugs in her system. Were there even any drugs in the syringe, or did they have a brand new, pristine, clean syringe there? Because this sounds like the kind of things these morons would do. Let's put together a crime scene and let's not use our heads. Obviously not saying that I'm pushing anybody to put together a crime scene. I'm just saying how stupid you have. Okay. Anyways, they also found that Devon had defensive cuts on her hands and her clothing was stained with mud and grass, which would tell anybody that she had been dragged across the ground, which in turn would tell anybody that she was killed anywhere else but her car, and then her body was dumped in the car afterwards. Also, another thing that would have told anybody that is, when someone's throat is cut, that's going to gush blood. There was no blood in the car. I'm trying to understand, how do you try to stage a suicide and you just morons? So as dumb as they are, we already know they're about to get caught. And I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't tell everybody they know and everybody they didn't know about what happened. Another detail that showed that it wasn't a suicide was that Devon's jacket had been carefully draped over her body like a killer would do if they knew the person and they didn't want to look at them after the attack because it hurt too much. So that led police to believe that she knew her killer. So I'm going to get this straight. You staged, or you tried to stage, a suicide crime scene. Number one, the knife was clean. Number two, you wanted to look like she was doing drugs, even though she probably didn't do drugs. But this was the first night she ever did drugs in her life. Here's the syringe to prove it. Were there any puncture wounds in her skin? Was there any drugs in the syringe? Were there any drugs in her system? Okay, that's first of all. Second of all, she slit her throat, and then I guess as she was dying, she cleaned off the knife meticulously. And then after she was done cleaning it, she disposed of all the evidence, like all the napkins and everything. And then while she was dying, she covered herself, because she got cold. She covered herself with her own jacket. And then she peacefully died with the clean knife in her hand, the syringe in her waistband, and the jacket covering her. Oh, and just to make sure that there was no work for the police, she didn't leave her blood in the car, and she dragged herself across the ground, climbed in her car, and all of that. Is that what the perps were trying to go for? Because, no. All right, let's see. During the autopsy, the medical examiner estimated time of death to have occurred between 2:30 and 3 a.m. So let's get into the investigation now, which is probably going to be very, very cut and dry and very easy. As Devon's girlfriend was the last person known to have seen her alive, Keary became the first suspect for investigators. She did admit to police that they had argued the night before, but she said that Devon had left after the fight. She ended up being questioned for 4 hours, and police even obtained a search warrant for their apartment. Inside the apartment, investigators did find a small amount of blood in the bathroom. Keary told them that Devon had cut herself weeks earlier, and the blood could have been left over from that. Police also found a car mat from Devon's car in the shower, and Keary told police that the mat had gotten dirty with food from a camping trip, which is why it was in the shower. They just hadn't gotten around to cleaning it yet. Police took the mat for testing and did confirm traces of food, not blood, on the mat. And then police did a luminol test in the bathroom, and it did reveal traces of blood in the shower, but the amount was so small and inconsistent that it wasn't what police would look for if someone's throat was cut. This led investigators to believe that the blood was not from the murder, but it was possibly more menstrual blood, which that kind of grossed me out in terms of I personally never thought of this, and this makes me want to go scrub my shower even better than I normally do, because I never thought you can come in here with the luminol light and see my menstrual blood, which means it's still there, which me being me, now I want to clean. Anyway, while Keary wasn't immediately ruled out, suspicion soon shifted to Michelle, the other woman. Michelle, who was 20 at the time, was married. That's why she didn't leave Keary for Michelle. Okay, was married to 26-year-old Brandon Bloss. They had met while they were in foster care and eventually got married, but their relationship was not stable. So it looks like neither one of these couples are in a stable relationship. They're both fighting with their significant others, and then two of them came in the middle to meet to try and do something but not leave their significant others. Lambs, cheating makes no sense. If you don't want to be with your significant other, leave them. Yes, is it hard to break up? It is. Leave them. And then go do what you want to do. But don't cheat. Let's take a short commercial break. When it comes to protecting your family, nothing beats peace of mind, right? That's why you need SimpliSafe, the home security system that's affordable, easy to install, and built to keep your family safe. With SimpliSafe, you get reliable 24/7 professional monitoring starting at just $14.99 a month. Whether it's burglary, fire, flood, or even carbon monoxide, SimpliSafe has your back. And here's the best part. It's easy to install yourself. No need to schedule a professional where they say they'll be there between the hours of 9 to 12 and they get there at 7 p.m. You, yourself, can have your home secured in minutes. Plus, SimpliSafe offers flexible, no-contract monitoring options so you're never locked in. Protect your home and family today with an amazing deal. Use my link, murderandlove.com/SimpliSafe50. That's SimpliSafe with an I, SIMPLI, Safe 50 for 50% off any new system, a free camera, and free shipping. Plus, SimpliSafe offers free returns and a 60-day money-back guarantee. What do you have to lose, and what are you waiting for? Secure your home, your family, your office now, and sleep easier today. murderandlove.com/SimpliSafe50. That's simply with an I. And now, back to the show. Michelle had been having this ongoing affair with Devon, which started shortly after she had gotten married. And Brandon knew about it the entire time. Why did you stay with her then? And it was no secret to anyone that he didn't like Devon. So basically there's tension between four people, which are two couples, Michelle, Brandon, Devon, and Keary. I mean, something's gotta give. Even though Brandon, you love Michelle so much, obviously she doesn't love you so much. So be strong, love yourself more, and leave her. And Keary, it's the same thing. You have to love yourself more and leave the other person. And, I made my mistake of that before, being with someone who cheated on me. I'm not going to say I'm just perfect. I'm not. But you got to learn and you got to implement. And murder is not the answer. Now, just a few weeks before she was murdered, Devon and Michelle had taken a trip to the Virgin Islands where they exchanged wedding rings and vowed to leave their respective partners. However, when they got back, and despite these promises, neither woman ended their current relationships. Devon went back home to Keary, and Michelle went back home to Brandon. However, it was when Devon went back home to Keary that infuriated Michelle. So it was basically Devon went back home, and Michelle begrudgingly went back home. That's what happened. And to top it off, the icing on the cake was Michelle had charged over $7,000 to Brandon's credit card during hers and Devon's trip to the VI, which led to a blowout fight between them. Which, I can understand, because don't use my money to fund your honey. Are you serious? You wanted to go to the VI with some woman that you were cheating on me with, and you gonna use my money to do it? Wow. Again, no murder, but Brandon, take her, divorce her and then take her to small claims court because she stole $7,000 from you. Seriously? Craziness. I should make a shirt saying that. Don't use my money to fund your honey. I guess that would be only serving a specific target market though, huh? Now, in the wee hours of June 15, 2000, Michelle and Brandon had repeatedly paged Devon, telling her that Michelle was sick and needed to see her. This made Devon drive over to their house, bringing Keary along for the ride. However, when they got there, Brandon told Keary that she had to leave, which she did. And then my thing is, did Keary forget about this to tell the police? Like, she didn't tell police this at all. One of the neighbors later told police that they had seen Devon at Michelle and Brandon's home around 12:35 a.m., which, if you remember, is within the estimated time of death that the ME said. Remember? Because they said between 12:30 and 3 a.m. Interesting. A search warrant was issued for Michelle and Brandon's home, and during the investigation, police discovered several suspicious items, such as Michelle's jeans were found soaking in water in the washing machine, along with a syringe cap that was identical to the one that was found on Devon's body. Blood was present in the water, but it was too diluted for a DNA sample to be collected. Investigators also sprayed fluorescein, which is something similar to luminol, in the backyard, and this revealed traces of blood on a pool cover and on the nozzle of a gardening hose. So this suggested that the crime had taken place in Brandon and Michelle's backyard. But that wasn't evidence that Michelle and Brandon actually committed the murder. So investigators needed to investigate more. So Brandon and Michelle's home was placed under 24-hour surveillance. Lieutenant Barry Golazeski was monitoring the house when he saw Brandon taking out the trash. What does it mean now? The trash is public property. So he went in the trash, dug through it, and found some evidence. In the trash, he found some used gauze, and this gauze is usually used to cover like cuts and wounds that you had. And the gauze pad had a distinctive wound impression in the shape of a bite mark. So Brandon was picked up for more questioning and soon examined, and on his left forearm, investigators found a bite mark. To confirm the source, investigators tested it against Brandon, like he bit his own arm, so they tested it against him. They tested it against Michelle. They tested it even against Keary. And then Devon's body was exhumed and a cast of her teeth was made, and they tested that against Brandon's arm, and don't you know it, it was a match. So this placed Devon in a direct struggle with Brandon on the night of the murder. More evidence surfaced when police examined Michelle's car, which had been impounded also along with Devon's car, because at the crime scene, it had been parked too close to Devon's car, so police just took both cars. Inside the trunk of Michelle's car, investigators found Brandon's bloody clothing and 4 latex gloves. Wow, so everything was just sitting there. DNA test confirms that the blood on the shirt belongs to Devon, and the bloodstain and hair samples found on her shirt matched Brandon's hair and Brandon's blood samples. At Michelle's mother's house, police also got the wedding ring that Michelle and Devon had bought during their trip to the VI, as well as a key from the physician's office where Michelle had once worked, which shows that Michelle had access to medical supplies, including what? Syringes. On August 13th, 2000, Michelle and Brandon were arrested and charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. I told you this investigation was going to be easy. This happened on June 14th, and by August 13th, 1 month. It took 1 month for them to do investigation and find out who did this. 1 month. So they were arrested and charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Before the trial, Devon's mom, Melody Guzman, said that she would be attending every day of the trial. I hear you, Mom. And she was quoted as saying, quote, "I've been waiting for this for so long, but now that it's here, I'm scared. I have to go through the details of the murder again, and I hope I can handle it. I don't miss her any less today than the day I lost her. I have to stay strong for her and my son. I believe in an eye for an eye, and I believe they will get what's coming to them through the justice system." End quote. Mom, you believe like me, an eye for an eye. Oh my God, yes. I mean, I do commend some of these people who forgive like the perp. I'm not one of those people. I haven't reached that level yet. I believe like Melody, an eye for an eye. And also, I want to do the eye. You took her eye, I want to take your eye. But that's not how this justice system works. In my justice system, if you murdered somebody's child, I will put the parents in a room with the murderer. Of course, after we find out that this is the person, I won't just say, hey, you're the murderer. After the investigation and without a shadow of a doubt, this is the person or people who did this, I will put you and the parents in a room, close the door. Obviously, I have to give the parents a leg up, so you're not going to be free to defend yourself. And, yeah, they're going to have at it. Have y'all ever seen that movie, The Purge? Kind of like that. Michelle's attorneys, Brian Monahan and Victor Scomilio, tried to get the trial moved out of the county due to the publicity, but the judge said no. Now, during the trial, the prosecution argued that the motive for the killing was jealousy. Michelle was envious of Devon's continued involvement with Keary, and Brandon resented his wife's relationship with Devon. Just complete jealousy all around. There was so much jealousy to go around. The couple then decided to, quote, get her out of the way. Northampton County District Attorney John M. Morganelli then gave this account of what happened. So he started court off like, this is what happened. So this whole thing is a quote from him. Or I don't want to say it's a quote. It's not a direct quote. It's just a recounting of what he said. So this whole thing that I'm about to go through is his recounting, and I'll let you know when it's done. So Morganelli said, Michelle and Devon met at Devon's father's house. Then the two women and Devon's father went to Palmer Park Mall about 8:30 p.m. Later, they all drank alcohol. Michelle wanted Devon to move out of the apartment she shared with Keary. The two argued and left. Quote, this was a very rocky love-hate relationship. Michelle Hetzel in January 2000 filed criminal charges at a district justice office saying she was harassed by Guzman. Yet a few weeks before Guzman died, she and Hetzel had vacationed in Puerto Rico. End quote. This is continuing what Morganelli said. Michelle and Devon each went to their respective homes. A neighbor of Brandon and Michelle said they saw the couple arguing in the yard about 10:30 p.m. Michelle, on her knees, yelled, quote, what do you want from me? What the beep do you want from me? Devon and Keary got into a, quote, fierce argument at their apartment, quote, a physical fight pulling hair over Guzman-Hetzel relationship. Brandon called Devon and asked her to come to his home. She showed up, bringing Keary along. Brian and Michelle wouldn't let Devon into their home with Keary, telling her to take Keary home and then come back. Quote, they wanted her alone. About 12:30 a.m., neighbors saw Devon walk to her car where Keary was waiting in the passenger seat. Devon pounded on the hood and yelled, I have to take you beep home. Brandon and Michelle drove to the Guzman Renner apartment at around 2:30 a.m., telling Keary that Devon hadn't shown up. Michelle called police to report Devon missing. Keary and Michelle drove around the area searching for Devon. They stopped to sleep and rest. About 1 p.m. June 15, 2000, Michelle drove to the former Canal Park Museum parking lot off Route 611 in Easton. That's where they spotted Devon's car. Michelle told Keary to look inside. Quote, she's not in there, Keary said. Quote, what do you mean she's not in there? Michelle answered. Devon's body was in the back seat. Her throat had been slashed, but there was no blood in the car. Morganelli said Brandon and Michelle killed Devon between 12:30 and 3 a.m., then dragged her body and placed it in the car. Dirt on her clothes contained cat and dog hair. The couple had a dog and a cat. An expert will testify that a bite mark on Brandon's left arm was made by Devon as she tried to fend off the attack. Although the slash on Devon's throat cut her tongue, rendering her speechless, Morganelli quoted, she does still speak through that bite mark. And that was his opening. Damn, what an opening. Now let's get into why he said all of that. During the trial, it was revealed that Michelle had previously attempted to hire someone to kill Devon. Ah, wow. A man had come forward and told investigators that she had asked him to murder Devon. Michelle had offered him either sex or money to take Devon out of the picture. I mean, as you would, right? But nothing ever happened with that. Now, you went to a random dude and offered him your body, or let's be honest, Brandon's money, for them to murder Devon, when you could have literally just stopped talking to her. I understand it would hurt. It would hurt. But you could have just stopped talking to her if it was hurting you. Which one hurt you more? I mean, I'm trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense, but, you know, I guess it's the whole if I can't have you, no one will. This is bullshit, but now you're, okay, whatever. The defense then focused on the holes in the prosecution's case. For instance, blood from a third unidentified person was detected at Michelle's house and in Devon's car. They also divulged that Brandon and Michelle were actually going through a divorce. So you were divorcing. So the defense's argument was that this proved that they would not have acted together to plan or commit a crime. How the hell does that prove that? You're going through a divorce, so you think people don't do stupid shit just because they're divorcing each other? Brandon's attorney, Kepler Funk, dude, what type of name? That is, I'm saying Kepler Funk for this whole thing, told the jury that this was Michelle's doing and her motive was rejection. Kepler Funk pointed to the fact that Michelle took Devon on a vacation to Puerto Rico and St. Croix in May 2000, hoping to win her over. So she took Devon to Puerto Rico and the VI. Wow. All on Brandon's money. Wow. But then on top of that, you spent this money. I'm pretty sure she bought both the rings. And then to make matters worse, when you got back, Devon then still decided to go back to Keary. That's why she was so mad. But nobody asked you to do that. Nobody told you to take her to the VI. Nobody told you to spend $7,000 of Brandon's money on her. Kepler Funk also said that Michelle was arrogant after the murder because Exhibit A, Your Honor, Kara Judd, who was an ex of Brandon's sister, Natalie Bloss, testified about a journal she kept that Michelle had confided in her that she killed Devon. Kara also had testified that Michelle had said that she was pregnant with twins and wanted Karen and Natalie to be the twins' guardians if anything were to happen to her. Michelle said, "Objection, Your Honor." Well, she didn't really say that, but she repeatedly did deny that she said that. So Kepler Funk was like, "Is that so, Miss Hetzel?" "Exhibit B, Your Honor," and showed her a letter in her handwriting because she wrote it, to which Michelle said, okay, yeah, I wrote it. Damn it. In the letter, which was never sent, Michelle says she, quote, still wants Kara and Natalie to be the guardians to her, quote, babies. Then, in a flourish of an attorney who knows they're going to win, Kepler Funk held up an autopsy photo that showed the 4-inch gash on Devon's throat and said, quote, "This," pause for dramatic effect, "is first-degree murder. Thank you." Then a forensic dentist had testified that a bite mark on Brandon's left forearm likely was left by Devon and happened while Brandon was standing behind her. Kepler Funk agreed. Ooh, let's see how he's going to spin this one. He said Devon actually bit Brandon while he tried to break up. Remember, Kepler Funk is Brandon's attorney, so that's why I was saying how he's going to try to spin this. Okay, let me go back into the sentence. He said, "Yes, I agree with you, forensic dentist. Devon actually bit Brandon while he tried to break up a fight between Michelle and Devon. Quote, she bit him to get him off of her." And my thing is, you say this like you were there taking notes, Kepler Funk. Then the prosecution told the jury that, despite defense's arguments, Brandon and Michelle acted together in the planning and the act of the murder, and they're both guilty of first-degree murder. They said that the defense was correct in saying that Michelle did this out of rejection, but that Brandon got Michelle to lure Devon to their home to kill her. He said that Kara was a credible witness and no doubt correctly testified as to what Michelle had told her. However, he said, quote, "I don't know if Michelle Hetzel told Kara Judd the truth." Judge Jack A. Piniella instructed the jury that they could acquit or find one or both of the accused guilty of first or third degree murder or voluntary manslaughter. In closing arguments, Michelle's attorney, Brian Monahan, said that Brandon alone had killed Devon. Quote, "This is not a conspiracy in any way. Brandon was fed up with his wife's spending and her lesbian relationship." Did he really say that? And her lesbian relationship. That just reminds me how they said lesbian in Mean Girls. That's why I said it like that. But I can't believe he said and her lesbian relationship. Wow. Kepler Funk said that he was disappointed in the prosecution and how they were portraying everything. And in his closing arguments, he quoted Shakespeare. Kepler Funk, you're not disappointing me. You're living up to your name. He quoted Shakespeare, pointing to Michelle and saying, quote, "The lady doth protest too much," end quote. Before we go to sentencing, do you remember when Morganelli said that when they found Devon's car, Michelle told Keary to look inside? Do you remember that? Now, think about that. Do you realize how diabolical that was? I just wanted to point that out because that was not lost on me. Now, although it was never conclusively determined which one of the two actually physically killed Devon, both Michelle and Brandon pointed the finger at each other during the trial. She did it, he did it, he did it, she did it. Either way, after only 8 hours of deliberation, the jury of 8 women and 4 men found them both guilty of first-degree murder. They were sentenced immediately by Judge Piniella to life in prison without the possibility of parole. I wonder why this was an immediate sentencing. You know, they usually wait the entire lifespan of an elephant before they even schedule a sentencing hearing. So that's interesting. I don't know. That's interesting. I didn't even know they could do that. So why do they normally wait? Why don't they just always sentence immediately? But I guess they have to think about it. So I guess every case is different. Okay. I just talked myself out of it. Morganelli said, quote, "This is the result I was looking for. I think the jury worked very hard. I'm pleased. I feel for the families," end quote. But then again, going back to the immediate sentencing, there are cases where you should immediately sentence. There are cases where the person is holding up a newspaper with a picture and a thumbs up and the dead body right next to them, and they still take 5 months before they sentence them. If immediate sentencing is a thing, why don't they use it more often? Okay. Let's get back to this case. Brian Monahan said, quote, "The jury deliberated for a long time and reached a conclusion, not a conclusion we agree with. I'm sure Michelle will file an appeal." Kepler Funk said, quote, "This case was sad and tough. It's as close to a Greek tragedy." Ah, God, seriously? It's as close to a Greek tragedy as you can get. 2 young kids just got sentenced to prison and a third is dead, end quote. Now, justice was served, but for Devon's family, especially Melody, her mother, the pain of losing a daughter is something that can never be erased. Melody's words following the trial reflects the depth of her loss. Quote, "They took her life, now theirs are done." And that is the case of Devon Guzman. What do you think about that case? Do you think Brandon did this alone, or do you think Michelle was in on it? And even worse, do you think Keary had anything to do with it? Because my thing with Keary, now I'm not saying she's guilty, I'm not saying she did anything, and Keary, if you're listening for some reason, obviously I'm just going by what I read. I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. My thing is where Keary didn't tell the police about the whole thing about going to Brandon and Michelle's house. She didn't tell them that. It was like the last time I saw her was when we had an argument, and then after that I saw her dead. So I'm wondering why she left that part out. And then in the trial, they're saying there was a third person's blood, but I'm pretty sure they would have tested Keary's blood because she was somebody that they were investigating. So who's this third person? So that's all I was wondering. So anyways, I'm going to have a poll question out for you. Do you think Brandon did this alone? Do you think it was Brandon and Michelle? Or do you think Keary had anything to do with it? So go ahead and answer that poll question. And that was the case of Devon Guzman. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And speaking of your comments, let's get into your comments from previous episode. So this was the case of Angela Diaz. And if you missed that episode, I will put that link in the show notes below. Christina Bobo said, "This case was wild. If Pick Me was a person, it sure as heck would be Angela, because why was Sis pregnant and focusing so much energy on her husband's ex?" That's what I'm saying, Christina. And who the fuck gets hitched after 2 months? Actually, it was 1 month of knowing each other. I read a meme once that said, "I don't know why, but those red flags look green to me, and honestly, that makes me think of Angela." What type of alarms or flags did she not hear or see that allowed her to behave so recklessly at the expense of another woman that she doesn't even know? Look, Christina, I had to take a beat here because you have DEK, D-E-K. And I was like, what the hell does DEK mean? Doesn't even know. Christina continues on with, "All I can say is Ian had mind control over Debo for sure. I don't feel like either of them got enough time. Michelle faced life and was forced to sit in jail for 88 days behind their lies. Ian especially should have had the cell sealed because he was a marshal and knew way better. Yes. Then he snitched on his wife. Where is the loyalty? Not there, Christina." Heavy sarcasm, she says. "Angela should have expected as much. I think they'll do this or worse if they get out again. I'm happy that Michelle reclaimed her life, pursued her dreams, became a mother, and sued the socks off the city and police officers who failed her. I hope she was paid in full." Thank you for your comment, Christina. Yes, I wish we could have known how much she was paid, but I guess it is none of our business. But I hope it was something to last her a lifetime and, roll over to her kids. But yeah, I don't think they got enough because she spent, as an innocent person, 88 days behind bars. And then to me, they just got a slap on the wrist. Thank you for your comment, Christina. And also speaking of Christina Bobo, let's support our most vocal lamb. Almost every episode, you hear me saying Christina Bobo, Christina Bobo, Christina Bobo, to the point where people have asked me if Christina Bobo is a friend of mine. Like, do I know her? No, I don't know her. I don't know her in person. She is a fan of Lamb and she is my fan. Like, I appreciate her. I'm a fan of hers. So being that, she supports Love and Murder so much, let's support Christina Bobo. Let's all come together as lambs and support one of our own lambs. So when she posted in the Lamb Facebook group, which I have the link in the show notes below, that she'd started a business, I wanted to give her, I don't know if it's a business, but it is a side gig. I wanted to give her a shout out and ask her fellow lambs to go and support her. So here's what she had to say in the Facebook group. "On a much light, sweet note, I'd like to share my s'mores. I've mentioned before that I spend my work nights crocheting and listening to your podcast. Thank you so much. Well, I've leveled up and recently hosted my very first class as part of a series geared to homeschoolers. Last week's featured project was titled Let's Crochet S'mores, and it was a big hit with the kids. I told them to grab your hooks, grab your snacks, and let's crochet and relax. Why does that sound so familiar? Totally inspired by you. Thank you so much. Anywho, I don't know who needs to hear this, but it's all love, never murder. Get a hobby. Yes, let's get the kids into doing something where they can get their minds right. And when they grow up, they won't turn into, like, for instance, Michelle and Brandon. She continues on with, my IG is at Ms. Bobo23. So that's at MZBOBO23. And you can find that in the show notes below. Also, if anyone clicks hashtag hobo by Bobo, hashtag HOBOBYBOBO, they'll be able to see my Facebook posts. I do have to get an official page or website together, but I truly appreciate the love and support. You can see one of her events, the one that she was talking. She actually posted it in the Facebook group. So go ahead and click on our link in the show notes below. Join our Facebook group. We do have a whole community over there. It's free and it is a way to support lambs and to support other lambs. And go and find her on Instagram at Ms. Bobo23. So thank you so much. I wanted to support one of my lambs who supports me. And this is how we give back to each other. And that is all I have for you today. Don't forget that you can support Love and Murder. You can become a sponsor of Love and Murder by joining our Patreon, patreon.com/Love and Murder, to get bonus episodes and a community of lambs in there. You also get case extras. So if the cases have pictures, court documents, videos, whatever comes with the case, you get case extras. You also don't get commercials. You don't get an intro. We get right into the case. And you get that at the $3 a month donation tier. So it's just $3 and you get no commercials. You get extras, all that stuff. Patreon.com/Love and Murder to be a sponsor of Love and Murder. But a free and easy way to help out Love and Murder is by simply sharing this episode. Takes you only, 30 seconds to do that? So go ahead and hit share. And we have a saying that we share this with everyone we know and everyone we don't. Kind of like Michelle did by writing that letter to Brandon's sister and her ex. Share it with everyone you know and everyone you don't. So go ahead and share this episode to your friends and family using your text messages or WhatsApp, and then share it with everyone you don't know on social media. And as we end each full episode, as Christina Bobo said, I want to remind you that it's, say it with me now, all love and no murder, y'all. Don't forget to stay tuned for my commercial guest. Bye.
We are Castles and Cryptids, where the castles are haunted and the cryptids are cryptic as fuck.
We're a couple of Canadian chicks who are fascinated by freaky shit, so join us as we fall down numerous rabbit holes.
Numerous, so very many rabbit holes. We talk true crime, cryptids, haunted AF stuff, and much, much more.
There are definitely some movie tangents in there too, because we love our horror movie chat.